Hello and a very warm welcome to this month's Pacecast. I'm Anita Pace. Thank you for joining us. Now, if you were to mention Siemens in East Yorkshire, one name immediately springs to mind. Finbarr Dowling has not only set up and established the successful blade factory in Hull, but he's now switched his attentions from wind turbines to trains, and he's doing exactly the same in Gull. He's a busy man, so I'm very, very pleased that he's found some time in his diary to come and talk to us today. It's a very warm welcome and hello to Finbarr Dowling.
Hello, Anita. Thank you for the invite.
You're very welcome. So, as you know, we always ask our guests to bring in an object that's meaningful, memorable or interesting. Something that's important, maybe shaped your career or had some impacts. So I've got no idea what you've brought in.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing all about it and why it's important.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this a lot, actually, about the different things. There's a ton of things you could kind of bring in for different parts of your career and everything else. But what I've brought today is brings me a lot of very happy memories. So this was given to me by Hull City Council when I left the project here in Hull. And it's a wind turbine, Golden Wheel Turbine with the Hull crest. And it was given to me by a chap called Mark Jones, who's passed away since. And Mark was the very best of Hull.
He was,
and East Riding, and he was an inspiration, actually. And for us, at the end of the day, it's about businesses, about people working with people. And Mark Jones, really drove and supported Siemens in our investment here in in Hull back in the day. And he really, for me, he was the epitome of a civil servant. His only thought was about the people of Hull and what he could do to support them and help them. And he made it so easy for Siemens to do business here in this city. But there was never a time you were with Mark when you weren't laughing.
No.
He was the funniest person ever. Yeah. And it was a mixture of this seriousness when he had to be serious, but this fun when there was fun to be had. And there was always fun to be had around Mark. And that event itself with a small dinner, and there was people like Alan Johnson and other people, and Matt was also there from the council. So it was very happy memories, and very happy memories of the time I spent in the city with the wind turbine business, myself and my finance partner Ross Dean, because to get a chance to do this once in your career is really, really special. To be able to go into a city like Hull, start from scratch, to build up the facility, to see where it is today with Siemens Gamesa. So that's why I love this. I have this on my desk at home when I'm working from home, and it reminds me of very, very happy times here in Hull, in this city, and very happy times of particularly a real gentleman, Mark Jones.
Funnily enough, thank you for those words about Mark. He was actually my first boss, Mark Jones.
Oh, really?
So he and I went back a long time, and he was a great man, and big shoes to fill for his successor.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just Mark, the whole team, Helen in particular as well, but he was that kind of a lightning conductor.
Yeah, he was. Anyway, so you're obviously not from Hull.
No.
That accent.
No.
So let's dial it right back to the beginning. Tell us about the young Finbarr. Where did it all begin? Yeah,
so I came from a city not unlike Hull, actually, called Cork in Southern Ireland. And Cork is the second city of Ireland, a population of about 250, 300,000 people, port city, just like Hull, and a city that had seen better times, to be honest. Cork.
You've forgotten where you were now.
Cork. So one of Cork's most famous sons was Henry Ford. So there was a very big Ford factory in Cork. Dunlops were there, and it was a city where those two industries kind of dominated, along with the port. And in the 70s and 80s, when these things started to, the factories closed, Cork. When I left Cork, there was 30% unemployment. So this was a city going under difficult times. And so my then girlfriend, now wife, we left like many people did. To come to seek our fortune elsewhere. I went to America first for a while, tried that.
Oh, whereabouts in America?
I was in New York and in New Jersey, but travelled across to places like Arizona and just generally
this with
had the
work?
crack. No, this was just when I was 17 or 18,
right.
Just having the crack. Worked in bars in Ireland as well. But then there's a point where you have to kind of get serious. You realise you're going to have to kind of, earn a living.
So when you were growing up, did you have a plan? Did you know what you wanted to do?
No, I don't have a plan now. No, I'm serious. I have no plan. I had never had a plan.
Were you particularly good at anything at school?
No, nothing.
Okay.
I was largely thick. No, I think I maybe got 2 or 3 exams, but they were all, just about. So no, I wasn't academic.
Sport? You like sport?
I love sport, but I wasn't very good at it.
Okay.
So no, I was, yeah.
So you went to find your fortune in the States?
Well, just went to the States to have the crack, to be honest.
I love that expression.
And at the time in the 80s, having the crack was something which I found out on the plane going over. This guy said he could get loads of crack from me. I didn't realise it was a... so I had to rein the crack bit in after 4 or 5 days in New York. But no, I think, at that stage of your life, you're not taking things too serious. But then when Aideen, my wife, and I came to London, it started to get serious then. But even then, there was a big Irish community, young people. Everybody was immigrating from Ireland. I say everybody our age seemed to be emigrating, going to Australia or America. And that's the kind of country Ireland was at the time. A lot of people traditionally have emigrated. So, yeah, we found our feet, fell into jobs. And then, things just kick on from that. But I wasn't I genuinely didn't have a plan. I don't have a plan now. I mean that sincerely. I didn't have a career plan. I just thought if I get my head down, work hard, harder than anybody else, get a bit of luck. And I think I found leadership that's the thing I really enjoyed. I'm a pretty average manager, but I love leading teams of people. And you start falling into that, and all of a sudden you get more responsibility, and it carries on. And we were lucky. We both worked hard. And that was nearly 40 years ago. So it's funny.
You've been at Siemens a long time.
Siemens acquired a company I was in 36 years ago, something like that. So I've been with them a long time. But even at the weekend, I was somewhere and somebody said, "Oh, what part of Ireland are you from?" And I get that question all the time. I think that's really odd because I don't feel I have an Irish accent anymore.
You don't?
And yet, when I came here first, I used to say 33 and a third, and you have to teach yourself to say 33 and a third, which is quite hard.
You've still got a very Irish accent there.
Yeah, I don't think so, but and you've had to slow down because you can't continue to speak so fast. So then we came to London. After London, we went to Shropshire.
And were you moving around the country with work?
Yeah,
with
work. Yeah. And that was the first new factory I got involved with in Shropshire 33 years ago, maybe something like that. And then one of my bosses said, your next job is going to be somewhere between Ipswich and Newcastle and Telford. So he got a map out on his desk and said, what about here? And I said, I've never heard of it, Nantwich. And we moved there 22 years ago, and our children were raised there. And then you're into a different life, which is you're commuting. So you're constantly commuting. So when I worked in Hull, I stayed in Hull. I work in Goole, I stay near Goole. And that's tiring, I must say, being away from home. And when I was managing director of Siemens business in Cheshire, which was the nearest place to home, I was still traveling to China a lot, to India a lot. So you're doing a lot of travel, Germany all the time. So yeah, that's the trade-off between staying in one place, working for an international company, is your family get to settle, the children get to go to the same school, you can build up some friends, but you're doing all the travelling all the time. And
that's where home is, Cheshire?
Cheshire, yeah,
yes,
absolutely, yeah. Nantwich and Cheshire, yeah.
So obviously we're in East Yorkshire, so I'm more interested in the whole story. Yeah. So am I right in thinking it was 2014 when you came to Hull?
Of course, everyone in Siemens was talking about Hull for a long time. Yeah. I think if you look at some of the early press, it was 2010 even. So there was a lot of talk about Siemens investing in Hull for a long time, and these things don't happen quickly. So there was a couple of my colleagues, Dan McGrail, who's now the CEO of the wind industry, funny enough, Sean Cray, who's from the area. They were doing the work behind the scenes with Mark Jones and another great local politician here, Lord Haskins. They were all working behind the scenes. Alan Johnson, another great, John Prescott. I mean, that's the great thing about Hull. It's full of
big characters.
Great people. And so this was all going on. And what you're looking at that time, you're looking to get some assurances. If you're investing such a big sum of money, which was the thick end of £500 million into a region, you're looking to make sure that there's some guarantees around that. And that takes time, and there wasn't ever really any guarantees in the end. So once the deal was signed, in fact, what happened was David Cameron arrived on the dock here, Alexander Dock, and that was the day the deal was done. And people like John Fitzgerald from ABP, who I still am friendly with, that was the signal the deal was going to be done. And that's when I got the phone call then. I was the managing director of Siemens in Congleton, and I got the phone call, would I go and front this thing? And sure enough, you knew that things were really serious here, because Peter Levy did a full live broadcast for half an hour from Alexander Dock, and then you knew that this is
big
going
news.
to happen. Big news.
Yeah. It's funny because I was living in London at the time, and I became, before it was about 2010-ish maybe, and I'd come up to see some friends, and living down there I had no idea about the Siemens rumour. Yeah. And I was seeing my friend, and she was saying, Siemens is coming to Hull, Siemens is coming to Hull. There was such excitement in the air.
There was a lot of excitement. And then when the excitement dies down, so the politicians leave and everybody leaves, and then it was myself and, as I say, my partner Ross Dean, who's the CFO of Siemens Energy now, ironically, who are now becoming the owners of Siemens Gamesa again. Because that's a whole other story, how Siemens changes ownership. So then we were, and that was, then you're on your own. It was literally just Ross and I, and all the circuses left town, and you've got this money, and you've got to spend it, and you've got all these deadlines to meet, and that's when the whole challenge sets in then, because you have hard deadlines. So I don't know whether people fully understand what we did here in Hull with ABP, but ABP, for instance, built a whole new port. I mean, they built a new part. We reclaimed part of the Humber Estuary. We used to walk on that land and say, this is a new part of Britain. This didn't exist. So that was a huge engineering feat that ABP oversaw. And at the same time, we knew that there would be ships coming, to collect components on certain days. I think January the 4th, 2000, and whenever it would be 17 or 18, something like that. So these deadlines, this stuff had to happen. The factory had to be built. And of course, at the same time, you are building a factory that you have to fill with people, and those people have to be trained to make wind turbines or the blades, and something no one had ever done in the UK at that point, certainly at that scale. So these are complex projects, but at the heart of all these things, a bit like the relationship with Hull City Council, is people. So our job was to try and to manage things locally, manage our stakeholders in Denmark, manage our stakeholders in Germany. I have to say, looking back now, talking about it, you think, well, that sounds... I don't think we felt the pressure at the time.
At the time, you were living it,
We had a great time. We had such a blast.
But you were starting from scratch, weren't you? I remember you had an office in Humber Keys initially, didn't you? Because there was nothing out there.
There was nothing. No, we had nothing. We had 0 employees. We started... employing people, so Siemens Gamesa employee number 1 was employed by us, number 2, number 3, number 4. We employed about the first 100 in our project team before we then handed it over to the business. So you're starting with nothing. But again, as I say, it doesn't seem as daunting as now you talk about it. It seems, well, that was quite... But at the time, you're just kind of in it. You're living it. Yeah. And it was great because in the town, there was a good vibe. And you'd become known, and that's one of the reasons I moved out of the town after a while, because you couldn't really go anywhere. I remember one day the security guard at Humber Keys ringing me, Finbarr, you need to come down very quickly. You're about to get a ticket. I was parked outside the restaurant there in Humber Keys, and I ran over, and it was too late. The guy'd given me a ticket. So I said, he started apologising profusely. I said, "Oh, it's fine, it's my fault. I shouldn't have been parked there. I didn't realise." And his next question was, Finbarr, so he knew my name. I wanted to know, did I have a chance of getting an apprenticeship for you? Oh. So that was, but it was great. It was a great place to be, and of course,
and it's exciting as well.
Really exciting. And of course, it was starting to coincide with the 2017 City of Culture as well. So there was quite a vibe. I remember my second night in Hull. I was staying at the Holiday Inn on the marina, and my boss Jürgen Meyer was coming to town, And I said to the receptionist, I want to, Jürgen, he's taken somewhere nice. She said, you're really lucky. His best restaurant in Hull is across the road. It was 1884.
Yeah, it's not there anymore.
She said, fabulous place, you got to go there. Also, great. Can you book me a table for two? She said, of course. I said, she said, for when? I said, tonight, Tuesday night. She said, oh, it's not open. And then it was quite limited what your choices were. When I look now at Humber Quays and I see what the choices are and what the offering is, Humber Street, sorry. You just think, what a transformation. So we were in at the start of that transformation. We were, I think we were part of it. We weren't the sole reason by a long shot, but we were part of a catalyst of things that were happening at the same time, like City of Culture, where you just felt, and through people like Mark Jones, who we've mentioned a number of times, you just felt there was something special happening.
Yeah, there was a positive vibe.
There was a positivity, wasn't there? And there was people were coming into the city as well from outside, and there was they were talking Hull up a lot. I remember the day, you remember as well, when the controller of the BBC came and said, we're going to put Hull on the map for the weather. And it was only then I started to I didn't know much about Hull, but then I started to kind of dial into Hull and start listening about Hull. And when I realised when I wasn't in Hull, the narrative around the town was very negative, around the city was very negative. And there was lots of, I would say, lazy, cheap, stereotypical things, that reference to Only Fools and Horses, the episode, to Hull and back. And that, you actually, to be fair, there is a lot of that about the north of England in any case. So I couldn't see it. I mean, what I saw was this incredibly independent city full of, I've never seen so many entrepreneurs in such a small area. I mean, you couldn't shake a stick as an entrepreneur somewhere.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Lots of family businesses as well.
Lots of family business, great humour, passion about sport, great rivalry between, the east and the west of the city. Of course, inequalities, of course, areas where clearly everybody wasn't having it, an equal fair share. Great history to the city, a city that welcomed migrants all for a long time. A city built on back of migration, actually. So it was a very exciting place to be, and at the same time we had a job to do. But as I say, because of the people in the region, they made that so much easier for us. Yeah.
You were welcomed with open arms, weren't you? I mean, everyone was literally so excited about Siemens coming, and they were so optimistic about what that signified. And like you said, it coincided with the City of Culture. I do want to talk about City of Culture, actually, because one of the lasting impressions is the Blade, in the city centre. Yeah. So how did all that happen?
Well, the Blade was amazing. I mean, for me, actually, setting the factory up here, getting the people employed, these were great things for us to be involved in, and I was just part of a team that delivered that. So these were really great. But for me, the legacy things, the thing I'm most proudest of, probably one of the most things I'm proud of most of my career, actually, is the Ron Deering University Technical College as an example, where, and I think this is a great example where companies can, through delivering social value, can really make a difference. And we were determined to try and be an enabler for these things. So when Alan Johnson, the former MP, approached myself and another giant of this region, Charlie Spencer, and asked us to front that university college, that was something where, from scratch, we were having to go and get 10 million of funding from the government. We were going to have to try and persuade local business people that this was a way of getting your talent. So those things are great. And the Blade falls into a kind of a variant of that category where, at the time, Siemens was a big name in the town. But again, it's a thing I always say about Hull. Siemens is the latest big name. There are many big names, Smith and his nephew, James Reckitt. These are all indigenous Hull businesses. So Hull has some monster indigenous businesses, and then brilliant businesses, like Ricks and Arco and all these other great companies. So Siemens was just the latest, but we were obviously the highest profile at the time. So we were asked to make a contribution, and there were some very creative ideas with big tickets, including very large hands coming out of the Humber Estuary with flames, and wind turbines being lit up at the press of a button by her late Majesty, her Queen. So there was really big ideas. But what we settled on in the end was, and it was there was an artist involved, and the theme in that first couple of weeks of City of Culture, that first month, was called Look Up.
Yeah.
And the idea was that we were so busy in our day-to-day lives, we're not looking up and seeing what's around us.
Yeah.
And in a city like Hull, actually,
there's a lot.
It's incredible. And one of the things I used to love doing in Hull, there's this French book called Flaneur, and flaneuring means to just go and wander. And it's written about a guy who wanders aimlessly around Paris, and if you have no plan and just have the time. So when I was in the city, that's what I'd do. I'd go out of an evening and just flaneur. And maybe I might end up flaneuring down to my favourite pub down in the Humber Quays. But
what is your favourite pub? What was your favourite pub? Minerva?
The Minerva, of course. Yeah, the Minerva. And the Minerva was great because Minerva was pretty much out on a limb at the time.
Yeah.
And but there was a great couple took it over, and for all of us, it was our kind of unofficial headquarters at the start, because that's where you go for your dinner, and we had a lot of people coming into the city, and there was a good place to meet. We call one of our projects Minerva afterwards as a kind of a tribute. But coming back to City of Culture, you could see what the idea was here to start to kind of taking in. And if you remember, that all kicked off with that amazing first couple of nights where they were projecting all the images of Hull, and you'd go around the city, and it was mad. I did it every night. I mean, literally every night. I went and did the same thing. And so Blade became an idea from the artist, and forgive me, I can't remember his name, but the idea was we would drop one of these 75-metre blades into the town centre
overnight.
But without anybody knowing, and people would wake up and see this thing had landed in the middle of their city. So to be honest, I took it to my bosses, and there was a couple of people who were sceptical, because you can imagine the liabilities of such a thing. But we decided to do it in the end. And again, that was a massive team effort, and that's what we did. So the first ever blade that we produced, which is still down on, you can actually go and see it. It's at the front of the factory. We moved it in the dead of night. I think nobody slept. And I headed off. There's a great YouTube video of it, actually. And I headed off about 1 o'clock in the morning, and it crawled through town. And the entire team, volunteered to do it. And there was that one moment where King Billy is on his horse there, and being an Irishman from the south of England, the one thing I didn't want to hit, I didn't mind the odd traffic light, but you didn't want to knock King Billy off his horse. I mean, I might be a hero in certain parts, but and once we edged around that, it was great. But to see it coming into the town at dead of night, and it was so funny because at 4 o'clock in the morning, it was January the 2nd, I think. You had all these people coming out of town, and they're let's say worse for wear. And there's this huge 75-metre blade, thinking, what the hell's going on?
Am I really
so it's really cool. And then we dropped it into the middle of town, and we went up onto the balcony of the town hall there, and people started to gather, and the light came up, and then all of a sudden it was trending #1 on Twitter, and it was amazing. And I always remember, it was at an angle where it came very close to an apartment block on the other side of the town hall. And I guess at this stage, maybe about 9 o'clock in the morning, there was already 1,000 odd people, maybe more. Sky were broadcasting live. BBC were there. Peter Levy was obviously there, probably. And this guy opens the windows of his apartments, completely, absolutely naked.
Oh,
with this wind turbine blade about 6 foot away from, chopping off his crown jewels, with 1,000 people in live TV staring at him, and I just thought to myself, this is Hull. This is Hull, and it's classic. But it was great because it got such a reaction. A lot of people were saying, "Is it art?" And I think we knew that. Is it art? Is it art? That's not the point.
Doesn't matter.
And the amount of people that came and interacted with it was incredible.
But they travelled from miles away to come and see it. It wasn't just local people coming to see it.
And they came and used to touch it. And I remember being there. I used to go up most evenings just to see how people were reacting. And when the students were there was students that got their degree and they were going there, and it was a big attraction. Yeah. And people were touching it and having their photograph taken with it. And of course, typical Hull, after a while, people were saying, well, we're keeping this thing. This is classic Hull. This is until we found out that there was some issue with planning permission, but no, it was amazing. But I think it really summarised, that spirit of that year, which was everything was different, and
it was.
I think they set some new barriers actually in City of Culture. Bradford has the next task, hasn't it, of doing it? But it was great fun.
It was. So it wasn't long after that, City of Culture, that you moved on. Was it a year or so after that?
Yeah, so I went back into the business, and I was responsible for our train operations, service operations. As I say, Siemens is a big collection of companies, and I was in the mobility trains business, and we operate about a third of all the trains in the UK are Siemens trains. Some of them people here would be familiar with, the TransPennine Express train that runs between Manchester and
nothing to do with them being on time or not, just the trains.
The maintenance of the trains, exactly. And that was, before COVID, these services in the north of England were thriving. I mean, they were really busy. Eurostar is another one of our fleets. So we have a lot of trains in the UK, and I was doing that for a while, and then it transpired we were going to build another factory, and it was going to be at that stage we hadn't fully finalised, but it was going to be in East Yorkshire, and I was asked would I do it, and I thought the
phone rang again.
Honestly, at this stage you look out getting one of these in your career, because it's a physical legacy that you and the team of people, and it is a team who created it, can see. But then you get a chance to do another one, and you just go, wow. I mean,
which is obviously a testament to you, though. They thought you'd done a great job.
Well, a testament to the team, I think, Anita, to be fair, because I pulled some of the whole team along with me as well. And these things are never one person.
Then they need a leader, though.
And I was the leader person, but it was great because I was very familiar with how people work up here. And when we were doing Hull, of course, it was Hull City Council, because that's whose land we were building on. Although at one point we were going to build at Paul, so it would have been East Riding, Yorkshire. So I was very familiar with people like Alan Menzies, who, to me, him and Mark Jones were such an amazing double act. And Alan is now CEO of East Riding, Yorkshire Council. And again, absolutely, just like Mark, incredibly enthusiastic, really great at making business welcome. And they had this really innovative thing called the single voice, one voice. So they bring everybody together, whether it's the roads people or the drainage board or all these other government agencies were brought together in a single conversation. So from a business perspective, it was really good. So we were very happy to come up here. Goole, very different than Hull in many ways. I would say easier to get to,
more accessible,
accessible. And the plan was hatched, and that was, I guess, now we're probably into our 6th year there, and the brief there was to set up in the first instance a factory to make the new Piccadilly line tube train for London, which we've started now. But actually, as we've got more involved at Goole, and as the business has evolved itself, we've started doing more things there. So we're part of the Raise community there, which is the office block that's over there. We take the 3rd floor, and we're built another factory to do our servicing business. I think there'll be more to come. There's a warehouse that we're going to open very shortly. So we've got a nice community there now. We call it the Rail Village. And it's coincided with a couple of things happening in Goole. One is the town deal, which is £25 million of inward investment from the government into Goole itself in the public realm, and other investments, which is going to really, I think, be great for the town. We helped to get the Freeport status, which is massive. And already we've seen on that Freeport status, one part of the Freeport's already been taken by a tissue company from Finland called Metsä, which is going to be another huge investment. And then the other great thing in Goole is our social value program, which we'd started here in Hull. We were able to kind of learn from that and start doing more. So we're involved in tremendous initiatives with the community over there, particularly around the education piece. We're working with 20 primary schools, promoting something called primary engineering, which is building on something we'd done in Hull, where we had the Green Power charity, where I remember saying to Mark Jones, wouldn't it be great, Mark, if this became the first city in kind of Britain to shut down its roads and allow children to build their own race cars and race them around? And to Jonesy, that was enough.
Yeah,
it'll be done.
Do it. Yeah.
And then 2 years later, Mark and Helen and the team delivered that.
Yeah.
And actually, a couple of our engineers, our young female engineers, that's where that work for us in Goole. That's where they got their inspiration from. So this stuff really matters.
Yeah, it does make a difference.
And so working with these primary schools now, which this will be our 4th year, we're looking to tackle certain issues around diversity in our workplace, because the gender balance is nowhere near where it needs to be.
Are you seeing more girls come into engineering?
Not appreciably, no. It's going to take time. That's why we're now working with 7, 8 and 9-year-olds, because I think we'd previously been working with 14, 15 and 16. But things like, and it's too late then, frankly, but things like the UTC, working with Primary Engineer, which is focusing on teaching the teachers to teach STEM. And there's another initiative which we're really delighted to be involved with, is the Dolly Part and Imagination Library. So we're part of that scheme in Goole, where we've now got about 250 young people from the ages of 2 who are getting free books delivered every month to get them into the habit of reading and stuff. So you've got all this going on in Goole, the social value piece, you've got the Goole inward investment, you've got the Freeport, you've got this incredible connection by road in particular.
And Beale, a developer.
And Beale, Richard Beale, has got homes. Every time he puts a new lot on, they're sold. Yeah. Howden is growing all the time. So it's an extremely exciting place to be. I mean, it's not to say Hull wasn't exciting, but Hull is somewhat limited in terms of its space, because it's been here for a long time and things have been built around it. All you see out here where we're recording today in North Ferriby, Melton and what's happening there with Whiteland is really, really impressive as well. So I just think in general, Hull and East Yorkshire is on the up. I think Goole is brilliantly located, because it's equidistant between Leeds and Hull and North Yorkshire and South Yorkshire. So I think there are things to improve. We need a better infrastructure around things like hotels, as an example. The rail connectivity is not great, but that could be said for a lot of places in the north of England. And actually, as a company, that's one of the things we're working on now next, is how can we get the same benefits of electrification in the north of England without having to spend all that money, because as we know, the money hasn't been spent east of Selby, and we announced yesterday we're launching our battery train, which will effectively give the same effect of having electrification in this part of the north of England, and those trains will be assembled and tested in Goole as well. So it's one of these things which is just all happening perfectly well for us. Yeah. At a time when it's not a perfect world, and we know that there are things that can be improved in terms of supply chain, in terms of future demand for trains. But no, Siemens is very committed to its investment in Goole. Really pleased with how it's been going. Calibre of people we're getting is fantastic. When we set up in Hull, I remember. Recording's probably the wrong expression, because it sounds like I had a Betamax or a VHS, but that Peter Levy 6:30 live, and they were speaking. There was a bit of a vox pop of the people, and some always of the fears dangerous. Were it'll all be Danes and Germans coming to work here, and I was struck by that, because I was thinking, I'm the guy along with Ross and a few others delivering this plan. We had no intention of doing that. Of course, you need a injection of people at the start to help you get going, to transfer the technology, but in the end, 98% of the people we employed had a HU postcode. 98%. But in any place, you're going to get these naysayers, these people who are somehow negative. The glass is always half empty. Yeah. In Goole as well, we're getting a tremendous amount of people. Yeah. In Goole, we have a bigger area to draw from, because you can go Doncaster, Sheffield, Rotherham, Leeds, York, Hull. But no, we're thrilled. It's going really, really well. We've started production, and hopefully in the next year or two you'll start to see Goole produce trains
the Piccadilly line.
In the Piccadilly line, air conditioned, Anita, for someone who's lived in London like you have.
And the Piccadilly line is bad.
Yeah, so
Some
air
of the
conditioned
bad
on the
ones.
Piccadilly line, and these trains are great. They're full of technology. They're lighter.
Yeah.
They're almost entirely
Use your
recyclable.
mobile on them?
Well, actually, in general in London, I was in London last week. You can now get a lot
With
better
good signal.
reception in London, which is more can be said sometimes on the trains. I find it can be intermittent. So no, it's great, and there's more to come. And we're really optimistic about the future of Siemens in Goole.
And what about you?
Mm-hmm.
What about what do you think's next for you then? Because you clearly enjoy these opportunities to come in somewhere, set it up, get it established, and then your job's done. You move on.
Get out of Dodge.
Do you think there's another one in you? Another one?
I don't know, Anita. I kind of thought maybe that this was, the thing for me is not about. So physically, I'm doing okay. I'm relatively healthy. For me, it's more I was talking to somebody about this recently about this. If you retire, it's the intellectual retirement. I don't think I'm intellectually ready to retire. I think I'm not sure what my mind would do with itself.
Just crazy.
It was, and whilst I can play golf, I haven't really played it because if you're away a lot, golf's a very selfish, at least my view of it is quite a selfish thing. You're 4 or 5 hours gone and you're away all week. Yeah. So I'm not entirely certain. I feel there's more I can contribute more, and certainly with Siemens we've got a lot more to do, and we hopefully got more to do at Goole. So at the moment my focus is on helping Siemens to deliver on what we committed to do in Goole, and seeing if there's more we can do, and who knows. But there's a lot going on, isn't there? We're about to have a general election. We may have a new government. There's a lot still to do, and hopefully, God willing, I can keep my health because, as my old dad used to say many years ago, health is wealth. And we've seen enough things happen in this world where you shouldn't take that for granted. I was struck this morning driving up. They played Rob Burrows the 1.5 minutes of his, what he recorded to be played after he died, and he talked about that, about live every day to its full. Be grateful for what you have. And I think when you start hearing that, those moments, you start to reflect.
It's important we have those moments, isn't it? Because we do get carried away with the doing and not
exactly
appreciating what we've
And that's
done.
why it's important to have the crack. Yes, work is tough, and we have to work, and we have to get things done, but we can also stop to reflect on good times as well.
Yeah. And appreciate them.
Appreciate what we've done.
So looking back over your time, you've been at Siemens 35 years or something like that. Specifically, maybe around what you've done in Hull and in Goole, what you're doing in Goole. Is there anything you would do differently with the benefit of hindsight? Do you think?
100%. There's always things you can improve on. I mean, one of the things in Hull I was very anxious to do was to try and get more diversity. So Siemens is very keen on absolutely promoting more diversity, and that's not just gender diversity and inclusion, but it's everything to do with it. Having more recognition of people, no matter what their background is, no matter what their sexuality is, no matter what their abilities or disabilities are, it's more inclusivity. And I think in Hull, I went all in, in the space of about 3 weeks, so I could solve all these problems. And of course, this isn't easy. So what we're doing in Goole is we're looking at that again, but in a much more structured way. So particularly around people with special education needs, that was something that I thought we could have done better in Hull. We're going to definitely do better in Goole. So we've announced a programme, and we're recruiting young people at the moment on something called Project Search, which people can look up. And I would encourage employers to get involved in this. And these are young people with special education needs who would normally leave the system, as it were, and there would be nothing for them to go to. Many years ago, there was something called Remploy, which would give people some employment. But for a lot of people who leave with the system with special education needs, it's very hard to get a job. And so what Project Search is doing is giving people internships for a year with companies to give them the experience of what work is like, and to give the companies the opportunity to work with these people in the hope that at the end of it there'll be jobs. And I've seen this work first hand in the NHS here in Yorkshire, and it's absolutely inspirational. And but it does take a lot of support. So we're working with the Heart of Yorkshire Education Group, Selby College. We're working with DFN, who are the companies running Project Search, and we start our first interns in September of this year. will start with 6 and they'll spend much of their day in the factory working, doing different tasks, and then they have a classroom as well. So that's something we're doing better. I think we can get better in all areas of inclusivity. So there's always things you can do better, always. And the day that there isn't is the day, literally, to just say, right, something's...
What do you like to work for? If I was to ask someone who works with you, what sort of boss, what sort of leader are you? What do you think?
Well, I think that what sort of leader I think I am is
completely different to what they say.
I suspect, yeah, and it depends over time as well. And one of the things I've learned in my career is, one of the most important things in life in general is perseverance. And is being able to kind of keep going at things, build up a kind of a system that allows you to kind of function when you're under pressure, when you're under stress, perseverance and taking the knocks and driving on. And particularly when you're not educated, as I'm not really well educated at all. So you have to kind of rely on inspiring people to try and do things. And along the way, I suspect there'll be people who say, this guy was not a very good manager or leader. You have to accept that. But I think what people wouldn't say is he didn't know. He showed passion. He showed drive. Resilience, that's another thing. And when you have resilience, you don't know that you have it. You just have it.
Yeah.
And then when you lose resilience, as you can in your career, and it happened to me, you then all of a sudden think, oh wow, that was the key. And when resilience goes, everything else goes with it in my experience. And getting it back's not easy because it was just one of those things we all just take for granted.
Yeah, we do.
So I think for me it's about inspiration, charisma, trying to find the right team, supporting the team. Yeah. Have I done it well? I'm not sure. Could I have done it better? 100%. But it's all I know. So I can't pretend I would have done it. It's all I know.
You touched on, you used the word stress just shortly, a little while ago. Anything keep you awake at night at the moment?
Not now. Well, other than the usual things, where a man my age has to, but no, not now. I mean, it did back in the day, when you're under real pressure, and I ran businesses with 2,000 people working for me directly. In difficult circumstances, we read pretty much every gas and electricity meter in the country, and it comes with a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. But even then, I don't think I stayed awake that often. But no, I don't worry about anything work-wise now, because
That's
it's a great company with a great team. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And what do you do when you're not working?
That's a good question. My wife and I like to travel, and
You've just been to Guernsey.
We keep ourselves busy, and we have 2 children who don't live with us now. They're out doing their own things, but yeah, we keep ourselves busy. There's loads of the world to see. That's my view. My son and I did Route 66 last year, which was a blast.
In a particular vehicle? Or?
Just in a regular car, actually, nothing. But it was just because I love traveling and I love those experiences. I love, I've been blessed with Siemens to work in China and India, all these other places. I went to Japan a couple of years back. So I think these experiences, taking yourself out of your comfort zone to be in different cultures is always really cool. But something, we're not getting any younger, and you don't have to be going at 100 miles an hour all the time. So, and as I say, having your health is key, because, it might not be the case down the line. So yeah, that's pretty regular, pretty normal. Watching a great Netflix series at the moment, or BBC series called Dope Sick.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah, so we're just in the back end of that. One of the things where we're binging it, had to stop the other night because we were going away somewhere. So yeah, that kind of regular stuff,
We've just got into, very late, Trying on Apple TV.
No, don't know. Trying.
It's about a couple that they can't conceive, so they're going to adopt children or a child. And we're only very early into it, but we got addicted to that. It's very funny. Yeah,
that's it's a very COVID thing, isn't it? COVID keeps coming up all the time, and you look back and then you think that was just wild. It was weird. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Do you think it seems like ages ago, though?
It feels like ages ago. Yeah. But we were away in Guernsey for the weekend, and that's a place where COVID kind of, they they didn't have to lock down. This for a small period they did, but by and large they were able to live normal lives for a long period. And we were just talking about, when we were here in the mainland, someone would cough, and it was really interesting. And I think it's had profound effects, hasn't it, on it seems young people's lives, but also the way we work has changed. We went from being a company that was largely in person to being a remote company in days. We switched over our systems seamlessly, has to be said, to Teams, and so the world has changed.
Not necessarily for the better, though.
I'm a people person. I like to be around people.
Me too.
But I also respect the fact that for other people that's not something that they need to be able to do their job, which is fine too. So but it's just life, isn't it, Anita? You have to be able to adapt to these changes. You have to be able to keep going, and you got to try and keep smiling, because honestly, there's so much stuff happening in the world that if you reflect long enough on it, it's quite depressing.
Well, let's not do that.
Let's not do that. Let's onwards and upwards, and and see if we can't keep going at this and getting a kick out of it. I mean, if you can have an 82-year-old man running the world in President Biden,
my God. What's the alternative? Oh my God. What is he, 76, 78? Trump?
I don't know. He's even probably more than that. I'm not sure.
Let's not even. That's a whole other podcast.
Exactly.
Anyway, thank you ever so much.
My pleasure, Anita.
You have left a very positive, long-lasting legacy in what you've done in Hull, and I'm sure you'll do the same in Gaul. I'll forever remember the blade and everything else associated with that. So thank you.
Thanks, Anita. It was really good. And as I say again, it's a team effort, and blessed to work for a company like Siemens who really encourage us to do this kind of stuff. So it's great. But
thank you.
And I'll be back in Hull many times.
And we look forward to seeing you when you're with us.
Thanks, Anita.
Before you do go, though, I have here a question that's been left for you. Well, it was left by the previous guest, and they don't know who they're leaving it for. Right. So the question is, if you couldn't fail at anything, what would you do now?
If you couldn't fail?
If you couldn't fail at anything, what would you do now?
Wow. Jeepers. I'd like to say eat chocolate for the rest of my life. If I couldn't fail at anything, what would I do now? I don't know.
You probably strike me as someone who goes for it anyway. Nothing would hold you back.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I'm one of these people that has a strong kind of sense of right and wrong. So I wouldn't be about failing for me. Is it the right thing? And if it doesn't feel right, so I don't know what there's nothing I've ever done that I thought that was exceptionally wild. Have you
ever considered setting up your own business, for example?
No, because I'll be no good at it.
Right. Okay.
And this is, I mean, I think what you do and what a lot of people in this region do, these entrepreneurs, is something I couldn't do. I think, to some degree, you become institutionalized working for a large company. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but, we're very lucky. We get paid and we don't have to worry about where the next thing. So I think it's too late down the line for that. I don't think I could do it. I think it takes great strength and courage to do that, and again, you need a tremendous amount of resilience to do that. But let's face it, I wake up and unless I've done something really bad, I'm going to get paid that month, and so entrepreneur is something I couldn't do. It's not that I wouldn't do it, I just couldn't do it. No, I honestly, I'm so happy with my lot.
Oh, that's nice though, isn't it?
I don't think I don't dwell on these things. I literally just thank the Lord that I'm still here, still going strong. I'm surrounded by an amazing family. I work with incredible people. I work for a company that enables me to do, or enables us to do incredible things. So I have literally no regrets. And nothing to kind of aspire to other than just being alive in the morning.
Oh, well, that's nice. Well, thank you. And thanks for being so honest.
No problem.
Thanks again for your time. And thank you to you for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. As always, if you'd like to get in touch, please do so. You can contact us via our normal social media channels. If you've got any suggestions about who you'd like to see or hear on the sofa, just let us know. And until next month, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.